investing too early is like building your house on a foundation of sand. And that, unfortunately, is what happens far too often. I see people that feel like they're doing well, and they do well for 10, 12 years or so, and then the market 2008 happens. I think we're at the end or nearing the end of the greatest bull market that we've ever had. So you can feel really great right now, but if you don't have enough savings and you're too exposed to risk in the markets, your financial foundation is really built on sand, and that could crumble underneath you, and you could go from feeling really great right now to really bad. If we go into a recession like a lot of people are worried about right now, you could be in a position where you feel really good right now, but then you lose your job, your accounts go down, you don't have enough savings, so then you have to pull money out of your investment accounts. So what are you doing? You're liquidating negatively performing assets, and that just compounds the problem. So before you know it, hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and for this video, I want to talk to you about the 6 places that you can keep your private capital. Now, notice I didn't say cash, because I want you to think not about cash, but I want you to think about your safe money as capital, because cash, you just have sit there, you spend it, you don't think about, really taking it and leveraging it. Capital, you think about more when you think about like, how are you running your business or your personal life like a business? And that's what I kind of encourage everybody to do. So when we think about capital, when you think about how do you save capital to leverage your life, to create growth, to, ultimately create the life that you love, that's where this conversation is going to come in. And if you watch this, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this, because there's a lot of opinions out there. I'm going to get through the top 6 places that people save, and I'm going to tell you what I think the best place to save is. And I'm going to pick on some stuff, and we're going to go from there. But here we go. Let's get into number 1. So, kind of the old school people. For those of you who know me, I used to play poker for a living in my 20s, and I was a top 100 ranked online poker player in the world. Had a professional sponsorship deal playing poker. I played 24 tournaments at a time. I kind of see life on a spreadsheet. I think that's kind of what makes me good at this. Is I used to have 3 monitors going with 8 tables on each monitor, and I just am able to process stuff really quickly, and it's just kind of a gift. And so the funny thing is I had to put this number 1, because I knew people back then who were really, really successful, making millions of dollars, top 10 players in the world that I was hanging out with. And they literally had money buried in their backyard, like literally in a safe, buried in their backyard. And just because they didn't trust the banks, they didn't want, and they weren't doing anything wrong with it. The money was all claimed properly because it had to go through, they won it in poker tournaments and stuff like that. But because they didn't want to put it in banks and they didn't trust it, they were literally storing it buried in their backyard. And when you think about it, like, you could put it in your backyard, you could put it in a mattress, you could put it in a cookie jar, and you could keep it anywhere that you have cash where nobody's going to touch it, or, put it in the back of your freezer. Like, if you've watched any of those gangster movies, it is what it is. But the bottom line is, anytime you do that, you're losing purchasing power of that money, right? You're losing the value of that money to inflation year in, year out. And so, especially right now in the world we live in, where, as I'm filming this, inflation rates just hit 7.5% year over year, right? Like, that is insane. That's the highest rate of inflation that we've had in 40 years. And I'll argue that the Federal Reserve, or the CPI, the BLS, is telling you that inflation isn't as bad as the 70s, but the bottom line is they've changed the rate, the calculation for inflation. And if you look at the inflation rates in the 70s, and if we were to use the same calculation today that they used in the 70s, we'd actually have over 15% inflation. So I'm going to tell you that inflation right now is worse than it's ever been. And so keeping your money in a mattress, or buried in a backyard, or anywhere where it's not earning is ultimately going to be really, really negative as far as like wealth creation in your life, right? Like, so it's important to understand. So the second place that you can keep your capital is inside of a credit union or a bank. And once again, it kind of is an extension of what I just said, because it's a little bit better than burying your money in your backyard. But the bottom line is, you still get a low interest rate. And once again, you're going to lose purchasing power to inflation year over year. You could put your money in the stock market. That would be number 3. Your third place that you could save money is in a stock market or mutual funds. But the problem with that is, I talk a lot about this. People invest way too soon, and they invest before they save. And by putting your money in the stock market or mutual funds, you're taking on a lot of volatility potentially. It's too risky for most people, or they're at least taking on too much volatility and too much risk too soon before they're prepared to do so, right? So most people don't understand also the basics of investment success, right? Like you can't invest, you shouldn't invest in anything that you don't understand. So it's just, I'm a big believer, if you are going to invest, make sure that you are fully educated about what you're putting your money into, and make sure that your financial system and your financial structure allows you to actually be positioned to take on the risk that you're taking on. Investing too early is like building your house on a foundation of sand, and that unfortunately is what happens far too often. I see people that feel like they're doing well, and they do well for 10, 12 years or so, and then the market 2008 happens. I think we're at the end or nearing the end of the greatest bull market that we've ever had. So you can feel really great right now, but if you don't have enough savings and you're too exposed to risk in the markets, your financial foundation is really built on sand, and that could crumble underneath you, and you could go from feeling really great right now to really bad. If we go into a recession like a lot of people are worried about right now, you could be in a position where you feel really good right now, but then you lose your job, your accounts go down, you don't have enough savings, so then you have to pull money out of your investment accounts. So what are you doing? You're liquidating negatively performing assets, and that just compounds the problem. So before you know it, all of a sudden 12 years of feeling like you're doing really well just goes up in flames, and you're starting over. And if you have a 40-year time frame, you basically took over 25% of your entire savings period to be able to prepare for retirement, prepare to be financially free. You took 25% of that time frame, and you lit it up in flames along with your money. And it's going to be hard if you understand compounding. It's going to be really hard to play the catch-up game at that point in time. So the fourth place is you could save your money in a qualified retirement account. Now, you probably know how I feel about this. I've done a video series on the 10 perils of your 401k. And it is as bad as it sounds. They are perils, I believe. And the bottom line with this, I'm not going to get into all the details. I'll link it above. You can check out the playlist on that. But the bottom line is you're locking up your money until you're 59 and a half. So then not only does that come with investment risk of stocks and mutual funds, but it's also comes along with the opportunity cost of locking you up and missing the opportunities in key markets. Remember, if the market is cyclical and it's not linear, meaning it goes up and it comes down, those down cycles are when the gaps between the middle class and the wealthy get bigger and bigger and bigger, because wealthy people take advantage of those down cycles and the middle class suffers through them. So if you're not prepared to take advantage of those opportunities, those moments in time, and there's probably going to be 4 or 5 of them during your entire retirement planning days, so to speak. If you're not prepared to take advantage and capitalize on them, you are going to suffer through them, and you're going to miss the opportunity cost that goes along with that in those key markets is just catastrophic. So the fifth place that you can save your money is keeping your money tied up in the equity of your house. A lot of people, I know Dave Ramsey is a big fan of this. You want to not get a 30-year mortgage, you want to get a 15-year mortgage, and you want to pay that mortgage down as fast as possible. So the problems with that is that in down economies, you're taking on all the risk. If your house goes down in value, you're taking all that risk. You lose the net worth. The equity in that house will shrink, and so you lose that money before the bank takes on any loss at all, right? So that's something to take into consideration. But the other thing about that is like if you're using that as a place to store your capital, that money might not be liquid when you need it most, because in a down economy, if you lose your job and you go to refi the house and you want to do a cash out refi to tap into your equity, you might not have access to it. If you most likely won't, if you don't have a job and you can't qualify for a refinance or a home equity line of credit or a mortgage, anything, a new mortgage from a refinance, you're not going to be able to tap into that. So the other thing to think about there is that there's no rate of return in the equity of your house. Like a lot of people don't think about it that way, but your house is going to go up or down in value regardless of the equity that you have in it, right? So by having more equity, that equity is in fact not getting you a rate of return, because that house is going to appreciate in value regardless of the amount of equity that you have. Right now, I'm a big believer you should have probably 20% equity in your house, because of the fact that, it helps you avoid PMI. And, so from that perspective, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that you avoid that extra expense of PMI in most situations. In fact, in some situations, having PMI will make sense. It just depends on what you're doing. But I think you need to make that educated decision for yourself and research it and ultimately just do the math, figure out what makes the most sense for you and your family. But at the end of the day, just to reiterate, your house is not a savings account. You should not look at your house as an investment from that perspective. It is not a good storage of capital. So the sixth place to keep your money, to save your capital, is in a whole life insurance policy. Now, one of the reasons that I love whole life insurance is because it has guaranteed returns, right? Like it's going to beat your bank account, which is fantastic. It's a great hedge to inflation because the long-term internal rate of return is going to be better than the long-term inflation rate. Not saying it's going to beat inflation every single year. Like this year, it's probably not going to beat inflation with inflation as high as it is. However, when you average it out over the long term, your whole life policy is going to be a great hedge against it. Now, I'm not going to get into all of why. I just did a video on 10 reasons I think everybody should own a life insurance policy, right? And what I'll do is I'll put the link right up here for you to watch it because I think it's a really, really important video for everybody to see, because if this makes sense to you, and I'll also put it on the end screen here because I think it's really important for people to watch, but there are so many benefits as to why whole life insurance is the best place to keep your safe money. And if you understand the importance of having safe money before investing, before taking on risk, and you look at the fact that that safe money shouldn't just be looked at as cash, right? It shouldn't be looked at just as an emergency fund. It should be, it is that thing. It is an emergency fund. It is an opportunity account. But really what it is it's capital. And when you look at all the cash that goes through your life as capital, you're looking at that cash. When you look at it as capital, you're looking at it as just something to leverage. You're looking at it from a creative mindset. You're looking at it to create abundance and to create wealth and to leverage it in a way where you control the results ultimately, where you can at least have an input on the results through real estate, through crypto investing, through day trading, through your business, through whatever your unique ability is. I think one of the things that we've lost too much in this world is people have stopped investing in themselves. People have given up control of the results in their life by outsourcing their retirement plan to these people that really don't have their best interests in mind. They just don't. And I've got a lot more videos on that. That's probably too much of a red pill going into the matrix for people for this video. But the bottom line is I'm just a big believer. Check that video out. I'll put it on the end screen. But anyway, those are the 6 places that you can save your capital. It's no surprise probably for people who watch my channel. I believe whole life insurance is the best place to store your capital. And you can probably see why when I look at all the other places that you can save your capital. It just is what it is. And remember, I'm not talking about it from an investment perspective. I'm talking about safe capital to use and leverage. So if you have any questions about any of that, and I know this kind of could be a confusing topic for some people. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this content. If you want more of this, let me know. If you want less of it, let me know. If you want something else, if you have any questions about anything, let me know. I'll try to create the content for you. You may not know this, but a lot of the content I create is based on requests from people commenting on some of these videos. So I'm really excited to engage with people. I love just creating content that solves questions and problems for other people, or maybe just helps you think a little bit differently. I love the phrase, change your thinking, change your actions, change your life, because the reality is if we all have this idea of a life that we want to create and a life that we want to live, but if you think about it, our actions lead to the life that we live, but every action we take is based on the thinking that we have, right? And so every video I do in some way, shape, or form is designed to help spur you to have a change of thinking when it comes to your money. Because if you don't get it right, I believe we're coming into some really, really hard times right now. I believe that if you're not prepared for what's coming, you're either going to suffer or you're going to be able to thrive from it, right? Like if you prepare properly. So I'm trying to get you into a place where you can think about things differently. So if you want to have a conversation with somebody from our team, you can click down on the link in the description below, and you can get on the phone with one of our endorsed advisors to have a conversation about your situation. Once again, there's no pressure in that. It's just informational. They want to be able to learn more about you, figure out what's going on. But if you have any questions, comment in the comment section below. Do that. As always, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. That way you get notified every time we launch a video. Until next video, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.